All right. A lot of times when I walk into a place, or you come into a place and somebody walks into a place, there's a couple of questions that are always in the back of people's brains. And one important question is, who is this guy talking to us? And what does he know? Okay? Well, of course I have a reputation, most of which are huge stories. Some of it's probably true. Some of it's probably exaggerated. Okay? And I usually can do one or two things around judo. But anyways, I brought some information that I shared this with a group one time and they went, wow, cool. I've been playing judo since 1961. Okay? And got pictures to prove it. I'm just going to put them on the mat and you guys can move around. I don't have my glasses. This is Ed Maley talking to us at a judo tournament in Tampa, Florida, probably 1970. And when I went to college at the University of South Florida, Ed Maley became my instructor. Now, Ed Maley, old school judo. Okay, Kodokan in the 50s, worked in Tampa for years, played under Taizo Soni, who started judo in Florida basically. Like Bill Nagase, who's in his 80s, still comes to the Optimist Club in Denton, where I'm training now. He's touted as the father of judo in Texas, because he was the emissary to Texas to bring judo. And he's still there. And he still comes out and he teaches. And the guy will still do fingertip push-ups, judo push-ups in the middle of the mat, warming everybody up. Okay? Just a great guy to know. So, played with Ed Maley for 4 years. And the interesting thing about Ed is I was training at the time over on the other side of the state with Brevard County Judo. And my instructor there, I was a brown belt. I think first Q, running around in my junior year of college. And I was throwing 4th and 5th degree black belts at tournaments. John Ross, he was one of my favorite guys to fight. Okay, he was the All China champion at one time. But my instructor in Florida on the East Coast always thought Ed was going to promote me. Then Ed always thought he would promote me. So neither of them ever promoted me until I finally graduated from college. Then I got my black belt. And that was back in the day when you had to earn your black belt. That was a 6.5-hour test, just the demonstration part. So anyways, I had a club over in Cocoa, Florida. And this is me back in that day throwing them, doing some stuff. Here's another picture from the tournament. Y'all don't have to sit. I mean, get up and move. Brevard Judo team sweeps the tournament. I moved from Florida in '77 to Houston and started working out at the Seabrook Bay Area Judo Club. Let's go back to the early beginning. McCoy Air Force Base, 1961. That's where I started judo. Probably AFJA. I wish I knew who the instructors were back then, but I didn't. I was only, this big. I have memories of being on those old rolled up jute mats that were tied with the cords in the middle so the jute wouldn't slide around. Okay, that's what we learned on in an old Air Force gym, no AC, and no light. I just remember light barely coming in from the vents around the edges. And I remember falling. And I remember learning a Pansoi Nagi back then. And falling, and falling, and falling, and falling, and falling some more. And then from here, I went to high school, wrestled. Here's a great picture of me wrestling. Nancy's going to go, oh, he was so cute. That was my bad.
I still think you're so cute.
I know. That was high school. Greg's going. Yeah, that was when it was short too, by the way.
No, I can't see anything without reading glasses, nothing.
There's a guy on my Facebook page named Tom Best, who is now in Austin. And that's me and him. He's still playing judo there in Austin. When I was in Cocoa, my father used to take me over to Orlando to work out. And we worked out with a guy named Hideo Sugita. Sugita played with Okano and Inokuma on the same team in Japan. And he was a 150-pounder, and scary man, especially for being as young as I was at that time. But he'd drop me off on Friday and then come back and pick me up on Sunday. So during those days, we were on the original tatami, the woven rice mat with the little plastic covers. And he floated his floor on 2x2 with 1-foot centers. Needless to say, there was no give in that mat. And of course, there was no air conditioning back then. But what we would do is work out Friday night, sleep. Every once in a while, he'd come out in the middle of the night, and he had one of those big drums, and he'd start banging on it, and you had to get up and start doing ichikomis. And then he'd let you go back to sleep. Then you'd get up in the morning, and just on the other side of where the dojo was a strip center. So we always ran every morning, and we'd go run, and he'd take us for a 2 or 3 mile run. And we would run through the sidewalks of the strip center, making everybody get out of the way, of course. And we just, looked like little soldiers marching in line. We'd come back, work all day, work all night, go to sleep. Boom, he'd come out with the drum again. We did that for a long time. Oh, the other thing we did early in the mornings on Saturdays was sit in seiza for about 2 hours on that mat. And he'd bring out the shinai.
We got one on the wall over there.
And every time you moved, you got hit by it. So I had the traditional Japanese upbringing. Back then we called it training. Today we call it abuse. Here's a copy of when he promoted me to 3rd Q Brown in Japanese. I'm not going to pull it out. And this is something he wrote. If anybody reads Japanese, 1971, we had a big gathering of all his people. He had some people down in Lakeland and around the area, and they came up and we had this big, huge workout. And 71 would make me freshman or sophomore in high school. And I won some kind of student of the day thing. And he wrote this out for me. I've had this ever since, which was kind of cool. But I went from there to Houston and started working out with a guy named David Drake. That's where I met Ray Williams and met him. And David Drake was there. We had a lot of really good players there for a while. A guy named Bruce Christiansen introduced me to the man formerly known. And so I've had the relationship with him since 77. And Bruce and I would go up there on weekends. Now Bruce was a guy, I don't know if y'all remember Mac McNeese, but they used to fight each other all the time in tournaments there. Because Mac was over in Beaumont, and we were from the Houston area. And Mac was fighting Bruce one time, and Mac got Bruce in Jujikatami. A good one. You know Mac, you guys that know him. And Bruce looked at him and smiled and curled him off the ground. Okay? Bruce was a pipe fitter.
Mac was built like me, but muscle.
Just, okay? And so that was a pretty interesting relationship we all had. And then I would take Bruce, and my first nickname was Grape Ape. Because what I would do is take Bruce, he was built about like you, but just massive, massively huge. And I would pick him up with my feet in groundwork. And I'd never let him back down to the ground. Because I knew if I did, he would hurt me. But I could keep him away from me so he couldn't grab me because he had shorter arms than me, and I would just play with him. And I would just get him turning beet red, and he'd start laughing, and I'd laugh. That's where Grape Ape came along. I don't know if y'all remember the cartoon or not. But from there, David Drake left, moved back to Chicago, and turned the club over to me, and I ran that club for about 12 years. And we had some people there, Tanya Mackey, Dean Mackey, both ended up with scholarships at Amarillo under Shell Hillis playing judo. And they used to travel all over the country. I used to travel all over the place playing tournaments back then, did the national circuit. Had some really good people coming in to play with. These are some of my guys. I forgot that picture was in there. This is me, probably 24. David Priestley came from England, played with out of Manchester with the national team there. Paul DeMarco came from upstate New York. He's standing next to me. Jay Andrus is the guy with the beard. Some of y'all may know Jay. He's still playing judo. To this day, when Jay grabs me, it's like the first day he ever tried to grab me. He has been trying to kick my butt since day one. And now he's 70-something years old, and he's still trying to kick my butt. And there's no stopping it. And it's hilarious every time he comes out, because I know he gets this look. And I've watched him play guys for years, probably 30 years. And I've watched his judo, and it's real sweet and nice, and he teaches. And as soon as he grabs me, it all goes away. It's on. We're going to hurt somebody.
Back to kill.
I'm going to take you down. And he always says, "Damn it, Bob. One of these days." And it will happen someday, maybe, when I let him. This was the club. We had a bunch of folks back then, a bunch of good people, Aikido, judo players. Got to wrestle in Venezuela. Anything going, when you go to different places, like when the Russians came over and we wrestled them, they give you a little stuff from the country. And we got these little Venezuelan flags, and we gave the Russians like 2 or 3 pairs of Levi blue jeans and tennis shoes because they couldn't get them over there. Okay, so we take all this stuff for them and we get a flag. So had a lot of years of experience. I've been playing in Houston nonstop. Now I'm in Denton, and it's a very interesting group in Denton. Transferring over from what I'm used to, and you're going to see some of that today in the way I teach and the way I work, because judo is nice to play at this age at one level, and then we have young people that want to play with different goals in mind and have different things that they're trying for. When I was at LSU, we started off with maybe 8 or 9 people. By year 2, we had 30 people on the mat. By year 3, we were practicing in a racquetball court because they were rebuilding the rec center, and we had 40 people in there. Okay? And then the Romanians came in because they heard about us training, so I had the Romanian team practicing with us and a bunch of their friends. And man, when we went to tournaments, it was interesting. So learned a lot from European styles, from Japanese styles, from David with the English guys. Those guys, I tell you what, we used to run after wrestling practice. We had to run for half an hour to an hour with 50-pound sandbags. Okay, we had these big sandbags, and I liked the sandbags because, well, actually I didn't like it, because you had to either hold it with one hand or the other, above your head, below your head, behind your back, and it's harder to do that. In England, they run with rocks. They go fell running. So before or after practice, depending on the daylight and the temperature, the littlest guy lines up. You line up from the smallest guy to the biggest guy. And whichever rock the first guy picks up, everybody picks up the next size bigger. So the big guys, we're carrying half boulders.
Sure, sure.
And, and those little guys, So, yeah, it's different the way people train, carrying logs and all that stuff. That's a little bit of my history. I've been to a lot of tournaments. I still go to a lot of tournaments, coach a little bit. Seen a lot of interesting things. Now we've got a new guy that just came into the club from Syria. Fast, I love international guys, and he brought his son and another friend. They want me to help get them ready for a tournament coming up. They're young, full of it. And he played in Syria with the Syrian team and got to also help the Egyptian team. So the big Egyptian that was big a few years ago, they were good friends. And a fascinating guy to talk to. He was a dentist. Left 3 practices in Syria to get out. And fortunately, he had a visa and could leave. But all his property, everything he had, is gone. He's been here about 4 months now. And but man, his spirit and his love for judo is just phenomenal. You go anywhere in the world, and it's like that. I love these people. I love you guys. That's why I'm here. Share some of this.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Too cool.
You guys want to look at some of this before I put it away?
All of us pretty know you, Bob.
Well, some of you know me, but some of you don't know all of my story.
See your goodies, man.
Wait, what weight did you wrestle at?
185,
That was Bob.
190 in college.
Oh, he was cute.
There
He is cute. Bob is cute.
Why don't you spread them all these animals?
Wow, Jay looks the
I remember
same.
that.
Yeah, that's
animal.
amazing. Changed much at all.
That animal looks familiar.
Yeah, that's Jay, man.
That's Jay.
Wow.
Priestley hasn't changed much. The guy next to me, Paul DeMarco, he's still down at UTMB. He studies squids.
Oh,
Goes all over the world talking about squids.
There's Jay.
Wait, that's you
But
wrestling?
where?
Yeah.
There's, okay.
You changed your hairstyle. And you colored it.
This little girl right here, Tanya Mackey, she was a gymnast, about this tall. You could throw her, and if she didn't want to fall on her back, she didn't.
Just like a cat.
She would always throw herself and land on her feet. And she could run and do a round off back handspring and almost clear my head.
Wow.
I had to duck a little.
Wow.
And when she was in high school, she was a high school mascot, and guys used to pick on her all the time. And they really didn't understand her judo abilities or her meanness abilities. And she threw a guy through a window one time in the science lab, and then some guy was messing with her in a car, and she just threw him out.
Get out. Be gone.
It was gone.
Be gone, damn it.
And from then on, nobody messed with her.
Sweet.
So, and her brother was just as mean. Dean Mackey. The Sagita, he's on the left up here. Ito was his buddy, and every once in a while they'd bring a guy in from Japan, a big Shotokan guy, and he had long hair down to about here. And back then, you only cut your hair when you lost. And the guy never lost. So he kept his hair. And man, that was brutal. Those days were rough. Sagita used to like to throw me right here, half on and half off the mat. I think it may have healed over, but I used to have a little notch on one of my ankles where it broke from getting thrown like that. Judo! What's coming? What's speedo? You don't forget those things. It's kind of strange. Well, that's who I am. A little bit about me. I don't run anymore. There's a time when I used to run 6 to 8 miles a day. 2 of these guys were marathon runners, Paul and David. And they would finish practice and we'd go for a 6 to 12 mile run. And we're talking about Ruska. Not too long ago, we had a conversation about him. Somebody was talking with Nguyen, and he trained in Tampa when I was there. Y'all know who Ruska was? Okay, look up Willem Ruska. He won 2 gold medals playing 2 weight classes at the same time, I think the 64 Judo Olympics. He was 64 or 68. He was Gaysink's protege. Now Ruska makes me look small, okay? And he had a body like a Greek god. I mean, this blonde curly hair and stuff. And every day I came into practice, Bruce would be sitting in the middle of the mat and he'd go. And he'd play with me like a baby. This was in college. Okay? And I mean, literally, like I was a white belt baby. And he used to like that. And we had some great workout sessions. He choked me unconscious 6 times one night. And some guy on the side said, "Can I see that again?" Okay. We had a great time. He took Dewey Mitchell, who was at that time on our Olympic team, but they hadn't gone yet. It's like a year out. And Dewey was middle linebacker for Alabama, starting middle linebacker for 4 years back then, and played judo. And he took Dewey with one hand, just foot swept him all over the floor. Just didn't let him stand up. You know, and there are people in this world you just don't want to mess with. And he's one of them. And I was talking to Gary Berliner at one time. I said, "What's Ruska up to in the world now?" He said, "Oh, yeah, he came to Tampa and the States to do professional wrestling, but he didn't act." Okay, there was no show. He went out and beat people. So he didn't last very long. All right, so he went back to Holland and became the strong arm man for the Dutch Mafia. But he's still involved in judo, and you can YouTube him. He's still throwing some really nice stuff out there. Gaysink unfortunately passed away. I got the privilege to play with Gaysink for a week. He came to our club on a tour and stayed with us for a week. And we ended up doing a class at a junior high school one night because we just started a school there. And he did his entire demonstration on a gym floor. And had a kohai that he brought with him, a Yodon from France. And he took every fall on that floor and never landed hard at all. He would throw him, and one of his feet would touch, usually the bent foot, and Gaysink would stop him and just let him down. Just every time. Some of the most amazing control you'll ever want to see in your life. And this guy just danced for a 350-plus pound human. I mean, and they didn't make gis back then that big. They do now. They had to actually sew an extra panel in his gi top and have them custom fit. And he was the first round eye to win in one of the Japanese tournaments. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal player. And they would talk about riding their bikes 40 or 50 kilometers back and forth to practice in Holland. Whole different world. Europe is just so different. But such rich history. Even from next, who are you? That's the next answer or question that needs to be answered. Has nothing to do with this piece of paper, though, by the way. If you don't know the person standing next to you, I want you to stop, make eye contact with that person, and introduce yourself, please.
I'm good.
Make a circle. Those of you that know me know I like to play. And I bring different things to judo and everywhere I go just for fun. It's not a circle. Jeez. We're going to play a game. And the object, of course, is not to be in the middle. And this game is called Me You. So everybody say bumpity bump bump bump. Bumpity bump bump bump. Man, y'all are good. I like this. Y'all are quick learners. Now, Damon knows me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk up to Damon and I'm going to say, "Me, bumpity bump bump bump." And you have to say my name before I finish bumpity bump bump bump. And if you don't say my name before I say bumpity bump bump bump, then you take my place. But I also could say, you bumpity bump bump bump. In which case you would have to say your name. That make sense? Okay, here's a practice run. Me bumpity bump bump bump. See? So she would be in the middle. Okay? Y'all got it now?
I'm panicking. I'm outside the learning zone already.
And everybody's saying, don't talk to me. We're starting to get avoidance of eye contact already. That's what's fun. You bumpy bump bump bump.
Bob Rea.
That's not me. That's not you.
Me, bumpy bump bump.
I don't know.
There we go.
But ask before you.
Oh, Greg.
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 Hi, Greg.
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, I'm confused.
Anybody?
Anybody? Kyle, bumpy bumpy.
Good try.
You don't get my part.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Susie. You have to go in there.
I'm sure that was exactly right, but I'll play.
You bumpy bump bump bump. Kyle. I'm Kyle. I asked for you.
There's plenty to choose from.
Let's do this real quick. Okay, this will give us, we're at a disadvantage because we didn't talk to everybody. Let's just do a quick go around and say your name. Bob.
Jesse. Stokes.
Amanda.
Danny.
Furnace.
Damon.
Cameron. Brian.
Nancy.
Greg. Dale.
Brad.
Susan.
Kyle.
Bob. That should help, right?
Right.
Go.
Frank.
Right? I don't know your name. What's Anthony? Worth a try. Someone.
Me, bumpy
Stokes.
bump bump.
I played this once.
You, bumpy bump bump bump.
Try. I wouldn't be here for a while. I can hear myself.
Me, bumpy bump bump bump.
Stokes.
You, bumpy bump bump bump.
Nancy. Tell my name. Does that mean I'm in for mumbling?
No. Me, bumpy bump bump bump.
Stokes, but I was too late. It's me again. You.
As soon as we get stuck
Yeah, you
here,
stay in the
that's-
middle.
Okay, so we just keep going. Okay. Pull the people in.
To get my right and left.
Yeah, because it changes now.
Left bumpy bump bump. Me bumpy bump bump.
Who's left?
I pulled like 5, 6 questions.
All right. So, groups where people come in from different areas is really nice because I want people laughing, having fun. I want to lower expectations. It puts us on a more even playing field because we all make mistakes. And later on, I'll start getting into my right and left brain stuff, and you're really going to be confused, okay? But it helps your brain a little bit. Be good for some of you guys. All right, goals. Next part of the thing I want to go to. My goals are very simple. I'm going to infuse all of this stuff in my next few days of teaching. Okay? WWBD, what is that?
What would Bob do?
What would Bob do? Okay? Well, Bob does things different than a lot of other people. He thinks different, just does things differently. One of the reasons, I'm left-handed and I'm right-brained. Okay? Shooting a gun is terrible on me. I have to shoot right-handed. Or I have to hold everything over here because everything works out of my right eye. That's the dominant side. So I think kind of different, and my kids will tell you that too because they're pretty weird themselves. Themes, butts around. You won't forget that. Heels around. And I was thinking the other day, in the shower of course, heads and shoulders around. Bodies around. I want to continue. I want you to start thinking about the round parts on the back side of your body. We don't think about that much because we don't see it much. Y'all get in a mirror and hold another mirror and look, see what you look like every once in a while? You need to. It's kind of scary sometimes. Okay? And also understand everything moves up and down. We all know that. Body rise, body fall. But we don't think about that in different circumstances than right here most of the time. All right? And my big one on the ground, attack the table, make it unstable. You're going to hear that a lot. Those are my goals, is to infuse this stuff and applications of this into what we teach tonight. What I'm going to teach, I don't have a clue. I really don't. Because I do not know what you know. And I do not know what you want to learn. And the reason, when I was in education for a long time, and I was an administrator, and I now refer to them as stupidvisors. Okay? Because when I went for my annual review, the ice queen looked at me in those managerial eyes that they have, and she told me, I do not want you talking to your people. I had like 300 or 400 people, PE teachers, health teachers. I was over all that stuff. I don't want you asking them what it is they want or need. It's your job to tell them. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay? And so I knew what my expectations were. I sit in my office and I tell people what to do. I don't work that way. Never have, never will. Didn't stay there very long. Okay? I had more guys come up to me, men, that have been in administration for years saying, God, I wish I could do what you just did. Went back in a classroom. Because they are absolutely miserable in there. Okay? It's not where the real world works. But those of you that do it, all the power to you. So I need to know what you want to know in terms of personal goals. We're talking about judo or budo. Or you may be in charge of, Kyle, a club or a school. Okay? Been around the university systems for a while, know that. This even applies to you. Okay? What are your goals now? What can I give you, or what can I help you with, and what can this body of knowledge give to you now that you need to learn? What's up front, on your mind, where do you want to go? Okay? Later, after you leave here, okay, and I hope to give you some tips on how to remember some of this stuff. And we're going to write some of it down so you do remember, because most of us don't. All right, we just walk away and go, I felt good. Yeah, now what did we do the other day? Okay, I'm going to give you some tools to help you remember some of that. And what do you want to be able to do eventually? What do I want to do 10 years from now? Where do I want to be? I know exactly where I want to be. And I'm using this time right now a little bit to help set that up. Because I want to eventually be able to bring high-ranked instructors, club directors, owners, and people together in some kind of symposium and talk. Why do I want to do this? Because the martial arts in this country is so fragmented, so politically distressed, and always has been. My first introduction to politics in Florida was when George Bass, I don't know if y'all know his name or not, he was the treasurer for Florida Judo, stole the money and left. They went, ah! You know, that stuff's been going on ever since. And if it's not that, it's Shufu versus TJI versus USJA versus AFJA versus USA Judo versus, you know, all that stuff. All right? Well, I'm sorry, but these guys have got to come together. And the reason I know this is when I did a lot of ropes course stuff, building ropes courses, the builders all got together from around the country and had a meeting. Because OSHA was fixing to come in and regulate the whole industry. And you know what happens when that happens, okay? Takes all the quote-unquote risk out of everything, all right? So they put together their own bylaws, their own organization, their own structure, their own ability to train each other, check each other, their own building standards, and boom, that became law. So nothing happens on a ropes course that doesn't get changed unless it goes through all these builders and they meet and talk about it and discuss it. And they come together every year and talk about these things. Absolutely amazing, wonderful organization. I used to go to these things every year, okay? And they have a very cohesive group. And all of a sudden now, you've got this group over in Austin now referring business to this guy over in Houston because they can do a better job with what they've got over there, with what they're going to build, versus up north. They do a lot of indoor courses up north. Well, the guys down here don't do that a lot. So they refer indoor stuff. If we want an indoor, they could build a zip line in a gym that'll send you all the way around that thing. And it's really cool. Okay, they have whole ropes courses that move up and down like basketball goals. And you can go all the way around the gym doing different elements and never touch the floor. Okay? Some of the stuff they've designed is amazing. So they came together and do that, and there's no reason why we can't do that, and they need support. When I was working 12 years at that club, I didn't have any support on how to run a club. I went to tournaments, I came back, and I treated my entire club like competitors. And I have seriously hurt some people, accidentally and on purpose. Didn't like that part of me back then, okay? And don't ever want to do that again. And I don't want to see people doing that to each other. I want to see us building each other up. And we can build competitors if you want. And we can build kids. I know we don't deal with kids here, but there are a lot of people who do. That's where the growth is going to come from. Optimus Club has 60 kids over there on Thursday night, every night. Every Thursday night. It's an amazing thing to watch. And they're all getting exposed. And they're coming back. They flicker back in after they go through high school and go through college and come back. It's amazing. Okay? So that's what I want to do. Now, what do you want to do? And here's how I want you to do this. I'd like for you to work in threes. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. As much as y'all want to participate. But in threes or twos, twos will work, threes are better. And I want you to work in these threes the whole time that you're here. And people will come in tomorrow and out. I understand this, but we want to stay with some goal partners to help you, to look at you, to observe you, to give you feedback, and to help you reach your goals, to make sure they're being met. And do that in a constructive way. And so you need to pick somebody, and I really don't want newbies with newbies, if we can avoid that. So get a goal partner, or three, and then you're going to get one of these pieces of paper. You're going to divide it. If there's 2 of you, divide it in half. If there's 3 of you, divide it into thirds. I want you to come up with something that represents you, a symbol in there. And I want you to think about what I can help you with now. And we're going to start tonight. What you want to look at later. And eventually get to. And make some goal statements. Be specific. The more specific you are, then we can get down to measurable, definable steps to get you there. Right? Whether it's a technique or working into a technique, walking, groundwork, something. What do you need work on? This is the time to think about that, put it all into place, and put it on paper. I have pens, I have paper, Please don't put the paper on the mat to write. Let's use the carpet. I don't think it'll bleed through. But then, just when you're done,
Stick it on.
stick it up. Any questions?
Sounds good.
Get busy.
Let's do it.